Hello, everybody. I am Tiffany Smiley. I am so excited to join you today. I am a military spouse and ambassador for Hiring Our Heroes, which is an initiative of the United States Chamber of Commerce Foundation. Welcome to the Reclaiming a Sense of Self Through Employment Survey Results event. This is incredible. This is incredible information. I am so excited about it. This is going to be a power hour, and I am thrilled to be your MC for today. As a military spouse, it's often a lonely and isolating road, especially when you're trying to find your purpose, especially when you're seeking employment and moving all the time. But did you know that there are almost 1 million military spouses in this country? For over a decade, chronic employment barriers have impacted our military spouse community's ability to be gainfully employed. And yet we have little to no understanding of how this impacts their mental health and well-being, the foundation of it all. Today, we are going to share our groundbreaking research and highlight the role employment plays in the mental health and well-being of the men and women who stand alongside those who serve or have served. We are joined by a dynamic group of government, academic, corporate, and nonprofit leaders, all of whom are committed to raising awareness about this issue and know the important role employment plays on mental health and well-being. Our military families are a unit, and it's going to take a holistic approach. This information is groundbreaking. I'm excited about it. And I truly believe that through this robust discussion today, that together we will be able to solve these great problems and come together to improve the livelihood, mental health, and well-being of our military spouses, because it makes our country and world better. To get us started, let me introduce Eric Eversole. He is the Vice President at the United States Chamber of Commerce and the President of Hiring Our Heroes. Hello, Eric.
Hello, Tiffany. It is so great to see you, and what an honor to share a video conference with you. I wish we could be in person, but obviously we're still working around the COVID challenges in this country. So. But really honored to be here. And you know, I think as everybody knows, I recently retired as a Navy captain, as a Naval Reserve officer. And let me just take a second to be Captain Obvious for just a second. I think everybody knows that 2020 was one heck of a tough year. And I like to say that everybody was carrying around rocks in their rucksack. From COVID to social injustice, to the economic challenges that this country faced and so many workers across the country faced. It was a tough year. But what this research, today's research, really underscores is that employment has a significant impact on military spouse well-being, and that impact has been long lasting. And if we're going to work as a country to heal from many of these challenges, we really need to work together to address those challenges that so many face in employment, but especially our military spouses who are the backbone of the military. These challenges are not new, but there's something that we as a community can address and make a meaningful difference in so many of our military families and spouses' lives. Hiring Our Heroes is committed to do that. We stand next to a great cadre of partners, both from the private and public sector side. Together, as a community, we can tackle this, and we're going to. Let me just quickly thank, before we turn it over to the great group of speakers that we have today, let me thank our longtime partner, Starbucks, for their support in making this research happen. They have been a partner that has stood by us since our beginning back in 2011 and helped support some of our most important initiatives, especially on the military spouse side, and especially how it impacts local communities. So Virginia and Matt and Starbucks, thank you for that long-lasting support. I also like to thank an organization that really in this space needs little introduction, and that's the Institute for Veterans and Military Families. They too have been a great partner in this research. We actually started about the same month back in 2011, so we've been tied at the hip since then. So we're really looking forward to working with IVMF, not only in releasing today's research, but more importantly, in finding meaningful solutions to help military families. So with that, thanks to everyone who's here. As I mentioned before this call, today is really a starting point, and tomorrow and really immediately after this is when we really start working together to find that meaningful difference. So with that, thanks again for being here. And Tiffany, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Eric. So join with us today on this journey to make a meaningful difference. To continue, Meredith Lozar, Senior Director of the Military Spouse Program, whose team led this research and put together this exciting event, will share a few words about the vital importance of this research.
Hello, everyone. And Tiffany, thank you so much for that introduction. And to all of you, we are thrilled to have you with us here today as we release what Tiffany just said, and I have to agree, is groundbreaking research on military spouse and well-being. We have long known the impact employment has on the mental health and well-being of our veterans, but what we have never fully understood is the impact employment has on the mental health and well-being of our military spouses. Today, we begin to paint that picture. Based on over a year's worth of in-person discussions and a survey, the Military Spouse Employment and Well-Being Project dives into how the well-being of the men and women behind the uniform is affected by weeks, months, and sometimes years of and underemployment. And it identifies how employment positively impacts our military spouses. Today, you will hear statistics like 31% of military spouses experience long-term unemployment and the detrimental effects that follow. And you'll also hear that 86% of spouses say employment positively impacts their well-being. But this research is more than the statistics. It's the stories as well. We heard from thousands of military spouses like Tracy Platt, an Army National Guard spouse who struggled to find employment near Fort Leonard Wood. And you'll see where she is today, despite the blows to her self-confidence. And what you'll learn is that the results of this research resemble conversations being had at the kitchen tables of today's military families. They are asking, what is the impact of employment on my spouse's mental health and well-being? And how does that influence our decision to stay in the military or go? In addition to this, in the next hour, you will learn about recommendations based on this research. So if you are a nonprofit, government, or corporate partner, or a military spouse, there is something here for you. Many of you have heard me say it before, and it bears repeated. We are not resting at hiring our heroes. Today, we share this research so that we can come together to make positive changes. After today's release, we will continue our work with partners like Lockheed Martin, Booz Allen Hamilton, USAA, Prudential, and many others to turn these recommendations into actions, and those actions into outcomes for military spouse employment and well-being. So without further delay, Tiffany, I will turn it back to you.
Thank you, Meredith. What I heard was stories, action, and outcomes. Today's event and the research we'll be discussing is made possible by the generous support and partnership of Starbucks. And if you're lucky enough, I feel like I am because I'm in Washington State, you must go to the Flag Star store at Pike's Place Market in Seattle. So thank you to Starbucks for joining us. Thank you for making great coffee for all of us. Matt leads the Veterans and Military Affairs program with a focus on strategic initiatives, national partnerships, and mental health and wellness in the military and first responder communities. He served in the Marine Corps for 22 years as an enlisted Marine and commissioned officer in both active duty and reserve assignments. Thank you, Matt, for your tireless efforts, and thank you for joining us today.
Hey, thank you, and good afternoon, everybody. It's great to see so many familiar faces and to be reminded of the ongoing commitment to the success and well-being of our military community. We're really excited about the study findings that Hisako and the IVMF team have tirelessly worked on over the past 5 years, and the opportunities to increase the support that we can collectively provide to military spouses and families. Before I touch on the study, I want to recognize the overall success of the military spouse programs that Meredith Lozar's team has driven over the past 3 years. The Military Spouse Hiring Initiative, which Starbucks was a founding partner of, reached its target goal of 100,000 spouses hired 8 months early. Having 225 companies join the initiative and the early goal achievement point towards an increased and deserved recognition of the value that military spouses can bring to any company. The program has also provided amazing opportunities for collaboration and network building through the Military Spouse Professional Network meetings and the virtual Amplify meetings. When Hisako and Meredith proposed the idea for this study, it was an incredible opportunity for Starbucks to support several things that we were passionate about. First are military spouses, who make up a vibrant and important part of our employee population. When you talk about bringing fun to the workplace, getting people organized and working as a team and building community, military spouses are perfect for Starbucks. In regard to employee mental health and well-being, Starbucks has recognized the very close linkage between employment success, life success, and mental health, which this study calls out as being critical for military spouses as they manage the unique challenges that they face in being the commanding officers of their families while maintaining careers. Looking forward, we are excited about how this body of work will contribute to workplace mental health and well-being advocacy and the practicable tools that HOH is leading, and how we can collectively best support meeting positive employment and health outcomes for military spouses. So thank you all for this moment to talk to you and the opportunity. Back to you, Tiffany.
Thank you, Matt. And thank you, Starbucks, for your continued support. It's not just good business to hire military spouses. It's smart business. And thank you for investing your time and efforts into this study and research. Your support continues to have a profound impact on mental health and well-being of military spouses. And as a military spouse who's personally felt the challenges related to employment, I am excited to see what new partnerships, conversations, and actions will be forged through our time here today. Our first discussion is a powerful one, which sets the stage for what is to come. Joining us to chat about why the intersection between employment and well-being is such an important topic for our military spouse community are Tracy Platt, Executive Vice President and Chief Human Resource Officer at Cerner Corporation, and Maria McConville, the spouse of the Chief of Staff of the United States Army. Tracy is an Executive Vice President and Chief Human Resources Officer at Cerner, a global supplier of healthcare solutions and services with more than 27,000 associates around the world. Cerner manages the electronic medical records platform used by the VA, DoD, and US Coast Guard, and employs nearly 1,000 veterans. Tracy has spent the majority of her career in the healthcare industry, and her husband, Mike, was a military officer and 20-year service member in the Army National Guard. Maria is a registered dietitian with over 30 years of active practice and a certified personal trainer with 17 years of experience. Maria has coached hundreds of clients to find better health and well-being through a process of self-discovery, envisioning, and goal setting. While serving on active duty, Maria met and married her husband of 32 years, General Jim McConville. As a mentor to other Army spouses, Maria encourages them to find balance in their unique lifestyle through a life lived authentically and driven by purpose and passion. Welcome, Tracy and Maria.
So thank you, Tiffany, and it's a pleasure to be with all of you today. And Maria, particularly you, I've been really looking forward to this opportunity, and it's a privilege and an honor to actually engage with you today. And I want to thank you for your commitment. And I know that word means a lot from what I've read about your impact, but commitment to this important topic in addition to the country at large. So really looking forward to engaging with you today.
Thank you.
So, with the research, that's taken place, obviously there's probably a very unique perspective that you can bring to the table here, given your own experience as a military spouse. And as I believe your husband referenced, the foundation of the family and the foundation so critical to enable really all of the success and impact beyond, but obviously in your life work as well. So I'd love to maybe just start, I know we don't have a lot of time today, but maybe just start with a bit of a question around the topic of military spouse employment challenges. And as we know, right, the background research has primarily been on more economic challenges or national security issues. But this research set, really takes a different approach. Which I'm grateful for as an employer as well, but really looking at the relationship between a spouse employment status, and that may be, unemployment or underemployment as an example, and their mental health and well-being. Would really love your perspective as someone committed to this, right, and empowering people, and you're living life authentically really resonates with me a lot. To create that platform, but would love, your thoughts on why do you think it's important for us to think about mental health and well-being when discussing military spouse employment?
Sure. Well, thank you so much, Tracy. And I do want to thank Hiring Our Heroes for facilitating this session. Thank you to Starbucks for commissioning and compiling the results of the study. And then thank you to our industry partners and spouses and the others that are joining us today. I really appreciate this study talking about spouse employment from a mental health wellness perspective. Like our civilian counterparts, we want to be compensated when we work, and we like to add to our family income for working. But I also think that there are so many intangible benefits that we get from working, not just the financial piece. I'm not telling you all anything when I say that I know that our military spouses, they're resourceful, they're adaptable, they're resilient, they're creative, patient, and self-reliant. I've been involved with several initiatives with some nonprofits geared towards spouse employment and also with licensure issues. And the common thread that I keep hearing from our spouses is not only do they want to contribute financially, but they want to work and they want to add value to organizations and they want to be valued in return. We know that our military members are deeply committed to what they do, to their mission, to the military, to their units, to our country. And we love our military lives as spouses, and we can have a fulfilling life outside of the military as well. As you heard in the introduction, I've been married to my husband for 33 years. Over those 33 years, there's been times when I've chosen not to work. And I admire spouses when they say, right now is not the time. I need to concentrate on something else. And so not every spouse wants to be gainfully employed. And I admire spouses for making that decision. What our options were as spouses 33 years ago for employment are nowhere near what they are now. Obviously, with the internet, with home-based businesses, with e-commerce, we have many more opportunities for employment than we did in the past. I think that the way I can best talk about mental health and spouse employment is to give you two examples of myself. Over a dozen years ago, as Jimmy was coming up through the ranks, our kids were growing up. We have 3 adult children, all serving in the Army. But as they were growing up and kind of getting into high school and in college, I was doing all the things that I thought were expected of me as an Army spouse. I was volunteering, I was going to committee meetings, I was going to installation meetings, I was doing all the things that I thought I was supposed to be doing as the spouse of a rising officer. And of course, doing all the things for the kids as well, and volunteering with the PTOs and all their sports teams and everything. But I slowly started to realize that I wasn't fulfilled and I was out of balance. At first, I didn't really understand it. But what I really came to realize that what was in my heart was really wanting to go back to work meaningfully in my career field. And I remember saying to Jimmy at the time, I said, I think I want to go back to school and get my master's degree. And he asked me, why? Why do you think you need a master's degree? You've never had a problem getting a job. And at this point, we had moved probably, I don't know, 15 times. And I said to him, because I've never been able to apply for any job other than an entry-level position. And I have a lot more experience in that. So you talked about in the beginning, somebody talked about unemployment, but also underemployment. Yeah. So yes, I can obviously say that I was underemployed. I did, in fact, go back to school, got my master's degree. Jimmy was deployed for 15 months. And so I really buckled down, knew I had a very limited amount of time before we were going to PCS again. And I'm proud to say that I walked across that stage to get my diploma 2 weeks before he came back from his 15-month deployment. And I think it has really made a difference in my life, choosing to do that. I know that it was definitely a discriminator then when I started looking for jobs after I got my master's degree. And it gave me the confidence then to start my own consulting business. So really important. But then fast forward to this past summer during COVID, all of the work that I had been doing for the last 7 years with my business was in corporate wellness. And obviously when people aren't going to work, there is no corporate wellness. So when COVID hit, the company that I had done 90% of my consulting for the last 7 years filed for bankruptcy. So I was out of work again overnight during the summer. And in the beginning, I was kind of excited. I thought, well, this is fun. I can get things done that I hadn't been able to do in a while. But night after night, when Jimmy would come home and dealing with the things that he was dealing with as the Chief of Staff of the Army were pretty heady things. And he would ask me, how was your day today? And unfortunately, the word that kept coming up was uneventful. Uneventful. And finally, one night I said to him, I said, I'm really starting to feel insignificant. Yeah. And he said, I don't know why you feel that way. You're significant to me and you're significant to our kids. And I said, I know, and I want to be significant to you and the kids, but I want to be significant to myself. And I said, that's not all of me. And so I fortunately, am working again and working for a great organization. But I think it's so true that, did I necessarily need the extra income at that point? No, not necessarily, but I didn't feel complete. I didn't feel purposeful. And I didn't feel like I was using the best of myself and living my life authentically when I didn't have anything more to say to him than uneventful.
Maria, such a fantastic story. Thank you for sharing that. So many things that we could take from that. I think a couple of things is right. It's the many hats we wear as military spouses. And, certainly having that point of identity, as you referenced, we know is critical. I mean, I have my own underemployed story, if you will. I couldn't even get hired at the Waffle House, even with a degree, because they thought, well, you're not going to be around for long. So that's not a good bet for us. And, that takes a toll, right, on people when they continue to kind of lose confidence in some of those circumstances. So just critical for military spouses, as we know, to continue to have the relevance and continue to have that authentic life and purpose, as you referenced. So I have another maybe question to kind of continue our exchange here. Obviously with the continued COVID impact, and I think you referenced that, and that I talk about this a lot. In that sense, it also is accelerating some trends that were already underway. So if we think about the leverage of technology and what that could actually introduce in a positive way for military spouses related to employment, where it's not necessarily in a location, but it's more a virtual setting. But thinking about the research that we've heard about and we're continuing to hear about, but what do you hope military spouses, employers, and other community stakeholders take away from today's discussion, and the relationship between employment and well-being? What would be something you'd love people to walk away with?
Well, that's a good question. And I really want to say thank you to those companies, employers, organizations out there who are employing military spouses. We're very grateful for that. Remember that, like you alluded to, that with the virtual world, I work virtually 100% from home, as I have for the last 10 years, that we aren't necessarily going to up and leave. So we can take our jobs with us. And so tap into us, learn from us, because we have some skill sets, sometimes those softer skill sets, the compassion, the empathy, the resourcefulness that maybe some of our civilian counterparts don't have. So tap into us as you employ us, but also compensate us commensurate for our skills and our knowledge and our abilities. It's really, really important. I had heard staggering statistics that military spouses are offered 20% less than their civilian counterparts because employers assume that they're going to have to put costs into hiring someone when that military spouse leaves. So that's, it's not our fault. So right. I would say, continue to compensate us commensurate with what our civilian counterparts are offered. And really for our spouses, take advantage of all of the free resources that are out there. There are so many organizations that are on board with helping spouses, maybe educational decisions, grants, resume writing services, career exploration. And thank you to all those organizations who are helping spouses with that. And I really think that spouses need to take advantage of those, like what we have with Hiring Our Heroes and the USO and so many different organizations with the IVMF and military spouse jobs, the Rosie Network. I could go on and on and on. So there are many organizations out there. Spouses need to tap into those and also tap into mentorship programs, American Corporate Partners and the Military Spouse Advocacy Network. So many organizations offering mentorship for us military spouses. And then finally, most of all for our spouses, don't sell yourselves short. I mean, how many times did I say, oh, I'm just an Army wife, or I'm just a volunteer, I'm just a this or just a that. And so I think that in some ways we've done ourselves a disservice. So I would definitely encourage our spouses to not sell themselves short, to be confident, find your authenticity, find your passion, and keep letting your light shine, and let all prospective employers and everybody know about the amazing people that you truly are.
Maria, amazing insights, phenomenal advice. I really want to thank you for your time and commitment and the opportunity to engage with you today. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
So Tiffany, back to you, I believe. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. What an amazing discussion. And the stories are so impactful that, I wrote down, using the best of yourself and don't sell yourself short. We're a part of this as military spouses and having the conversations and having the boldness to move forward. So thank you for that. Now let's hear from Candice Brown. Candice is a military spouse and corporate senior finance professional who is all too familiar with the challenges of trying to maintain a career while married to her active duty service member. She is also currently the co-lead for Hiring Our Heroes, Misawa Japan Military Spouse Professional Network, where she leads a team of amazing spouses who provide peer networking, professional development, and career connections to the community. Here's Candice.
Hello, my name is Candice Brown, and I am married to an active duty airman. I have been a military spouse for 12 years. While I have been employed my entire 12 years being affiliated with a military member, I cannot say that I was always doing a job that I would consider fulfilling. Like many others, I moved to be with my service member right after obtaining my undergraduate degree. I knew that I wanted to work and put everything I had learned to use. Finding a job 1,500 miles away from the city that I graduated was difficult. I had never lived or worked outside of my home state, so my network was very concentrated to one region. The first few months of living in my new location were probably the hardest for me, emotionally and professionally. I applied for every job I could in my new city, and I was constantly turned down for being overqualified, for having the degree I worked so hard for, or underqualified for not having enough years of experience to back up my diploma. I was also turned down for a couple of local positions, specifically because I unknowingly answered the "how long will your spouse be stationed here" question, which I didn't understand at the time wasn't even an appropriate interview question, and I definitely was not required to answer. I knew I had to do something, as I was passionate about creating an identity outside of just military spouse. I had goals and dreams I knew I wanted to pursue, even though my husband's career took priority. It was important for my mental health to be able to get out of the house every day and do something that made me feel like I was making an impact, even in a small way, and reaching one of my set goals. Unable to find any paid positions, I went on base and began to volunteer. After 4 months of volunteering, a member of the staff approached me with a job opportunity. She knew about a position in line with my degree opening up in a squadron on base. She assisted me in creating a resume in USA Jobs and contacted the hiring manager to get me an interview. I landed the position 2 weeks later. That was the first time I started to understand the importance of growing my network and leveraging others' networks to help me reach my professional goals. I then used that position to grow and get several more along the way. At each point, having the in on a certain promotion or new position based on who I knew. While none of the positions I held were my dream jobs, I was at that stage of my professional life where I was happy to be employed and financially independent from my husband. As spouses, it is sometimes so difficult to get a position in a new city that once we land something, even if it's not something we really want to do, we find ourselves settling, being happy to just be employed. I know I was underemployed for 8 years across 3 different positions. My growing network became my support system. I looked to them when I had questions about the Air Force or my general career trajectory. As a finance professional who had very little interest in contracting or government resource planning at the time, I found it difficult to locate mentors on base in my industry. My first mid-level finance position was with a government contractor who only employed 4 individuals on my base, mine being the only finance position. I didn't realize at the time how important it was to have an industry mentor, someone in your corner who either currently has your job title or at one point had the title that you want. After 8 years of working in jobs just to say I had a job, I leveraged my network and was offered a finance position in a private company with a culture that aligned with my values and upward mobility that directly reflected my goals. My director and current mentor is also a military spouse, and she helped me realize that your spouse's military career does not have to hold you back. The Military Spouse Professional Network is an organization that has helped me grow so much as a mentor and a professional. The men and women I met through the network gave me the confidence I needed to go after things I never felt were possible, like negotiating with my current company to bring my job with me overseas. Thank you.
Thank you, Candace. When we talk about military spouses' need for meaningful employment and the role that it plays on their mental health and well-being, we see a strong tie back to their sense of self and identity, as you've heard already today. Today's panel dives into the 2020 Military Spouse Employment and Wellbeing Survey to discuss the results and what we can do as a nation, as friends, as partners, to help our military spouses thrive in the workplace. Moderating this panel will be Dr. Tina Atherall, CEO of Psych Armor Institute. Dr. Atherall is a social innovation specialist with a concentration in nonprofit management and social enterprise. As CEO, she works with organizations and communities, educating and training them on topics related to the military community. On the panel, we have Rosalinda Mari, Director of Applied Research and Analytics at the Institute for Veterans and Military Families at Syracuse University. Rosalinda works on a diverse research portfolio that reflects the range of social, economic, and wellness challenges that may affect military families. Joining Rosalinda is Sherman Gillums Jr., Chief Strategy and Operations Officer for the National Alliance on Mental Illness. His past experience in advocacy includes serving as an Executive Director of Paralyzed Veterans of America and Chief Strategy and Advocacy Officer for AMVETS. Finally, we are joined by Hisako Santavilli, Senior Advisor for Research and Innovation at Hiring Our Heroes. In her role, Hisako uncovers solutions that best support military spouses and veterans' ability to thrive in the workplace. Welcome.
Thanks, Tiffany. So I get to kick this panel off, and those of you that might know me know that I love panels and I love to facilitate these conversations. So thank you once again to everyone that's here today that care about this conversation, and also to all of those behind the scenes that are diving into this important issue of well-being. So once again, the survey is led by our great friends here at Hiring Our Heroes and conducted in collaboration with the Institute for Veteran and Military Families at Syracuse. Rosie, always great work, to understand the impact of employment on mental health and well-being of military spouses. We're going to keep saying that over and over again so that we're really clear on what we're here to discuss. So first and foremost, as a social work professional and an organizational leader, surveys, events, and initiatives such as this that raise awareness to these key issues about a targeted community assist leaders like myself in prioritizing and making informed decisions related to programming, resources, funding, and so much more. The Military Spouse Employment and Wellbeing Survey, as you have already heard, was fielded during the summer and had about 3,300 military spouse respondents. All of you that are out there conducting surveys or research understand that those numbers are very needed and are awesome. So take note of the timing once again, and you'll see it when you read the report, that this is done during a pandemic affecting a community that's already been challenged with employment stressors. So I do have a personal interest in this discussion because my life has been directly impacted by the subtitle of military spouse. For 20 years, I had the privilege of ebbing and flowing with the Marine Corps family life. I'm a creator of 4 incredible human beings. And alongside these priorities, my ability to maintain a sense of self through employment was life-saving. The findings of this survey resonate so profoundly that they could be entries of my own personal journal. I'm invested in the well-being of this population because I know firsthand the powerful influence that long-term, across the lifespan, that career success has for an individual in the entire ecosystem. So thank you all for being invested in this conversation, and to our panelists. So a few housekeeping issues, which of course always have to make sure you keep me on track. So no questions after the panel today, but you can reach out. You'll see in the chat Hisako's email. So please email any questions that you may have for her that they can answer afterwards. I know we still have a few Q&A. We'll make sure that I get that directed to the panel within their discussion. And then also the full report can be downloaded on the Hiring Our Heroes website /research. So really encourage you to get in there and start to dig through the report. So Hisako, let's start with you. This incredible work. We've heard already so much, and Tiffany's talked about it. Everybody else already has started a really great conversation for you to kick off for us on this panel about what the research revealed on the impact of employment and military spouse well-being.
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Tina. And I'm excited to be here and excited to have so many people joining us today. So I'll start with just a little bit of a background into kind of the thought process on how we were putting this together. So last year, when I started working on this research alongside Dr. Amy Page and Rosie, who's joining us on this panel here, we weren't really sure what we were going to uncover because there wasn't really current research that we could find that examined that relationship between employment and well-being for military spouses. Certainly a lot of research out there on the civilian and the civilian general public, but not so much on military spouses. And as we've kind of talked about already, military spouses have a lot of unique circumstances. So merit looking into specific impacts on spouses themselves. So as a result, what we ended up drawing a lot on was more insight from our qualitative questions, which actually turned out really great because it really told more of a story on the relationship between employment and well-being. So what we found was that employment did positively impact our military spouses' respondents' well-being. Respondents felt employment promoted their confidence, pride, and gave them an opportunity to feel valued by themselves and by others. Employment also provided financial independence, it enhanced their family relationships, and it really improved their overall quality of life. And then as Tiffany kind of teased for us earlier too, respondents did feel that employment allowed them to develop a sense of self, or in other words, their own identity. They were able to be more than a spouse or a parent. And really, most importantly, they felt like they had a sense of purpose, which we know is really, really important for your mental health and well-being. Respondents who were employed also reported higher levels of agreement with aspects to their self-esteem, aspects related to flourishing compared to those who were unemployed. So some of the examples of aspects of self-esteem and flourishing included, I'm engaged and interested in my daily activities, I'm optimistic about my future, and people respect me. We also found that duration of unemployment affected well-being. So as you kind of alluded to, 32% of respondents in the labor force were unemployed. Some of that was likely due to COVID. So 2/3 of our respondents indicated they had experienced employment challenges as a result of the pandemic, with 14% indicating they were unable to find work because of limited opportunities. Among those who were unemployed, Meredith also mentioned this too, 31% reported experiencing long-term unemployment, which is defined as unemployed for 27 weeks or longer. So this rate was 3 times higher than the civilian long-term unemployment rate during the time the survey was fielded. I want to really quickly just point out that important note here that unemployment was tied to a very specific definition, which is that they were not employed, but had actively sought work within the past 4 weeks. And by actively sought work, we really mean actively checking job boards and interviewing for positions. Our respondents tended to report negative effects to their aspects of self-esteem the longer they were unemployed, and particularly after that 10-week mark of unemployment. A lot of our respondents, most of our respondents had never really been diagnosed with a mental health condition, but those who had, 12% indicated they received a diagnosis while they were unemployed. And of those who had received a mental health diagnosis, 1 in 4 respondents indicated using resources to support their mental health and emotional well-being when faced with employment-related challenges. Respondents indicated that community support services and resources had been helpful in meeting their needs, but they still really saw improvements to mental health services and access, particularly overall. Just a couple more things. Our respondents make an important distinction between finding employment and finding meaningful employment. So while certainly finding employment in general is much needed and much appreciated, and all spouses will take it, respondents frequently cited that meaning employment really allowed them to feel independent, satisfied, and that they had the opportunity to grow, which is really important. In fact, for 73% of spouses, wanting self-improvement and personal growth were there major reasons for wanting to work or working currently? However, when they were underemployed, which we use the labor utilization framework to measure, underemployment tended to negatively affect aspects of their self-esteem compared to those who are not underemployed. And then along with all of these benefits of employment, we also heard that there were a lot of challenges in maintaining steady employment. Some respondents expressed frustrations with having to start over with each new duty station, and others indicated that the demands of the military sapped them of logistical support from their service member, adding to their difficulties in balancing employment with caregiving. And so for a few others, a new job appeared to draw into sharp focus, really that cumulative impact that we keep talking about of the multiple relocation and their chronic underemployment. So for spouses who were employed, they really recommended and sought employers to destigmatize mental health in the workplace, but also really most importantly, make well-being a priority in the workplace culture. Tina?
Awesome. Thank you so much, Hisako. I think there's so many validating responses around what we have in conversation within the community, and many of our partners that are doing this programmatic work. You kicked this off in such a great way to Rosie, which also is just such a dynamic duo between the two of you. So Rosie, I'm going to come over to you and let's hone in a little bit more on what Hisako was speaking about around the unemployment and the underemployment, and the tend to report lower aspects of this regarding self-esteem, which is why helping spouses find meaningful employment is so important. We hear that over and over again. And I just also want to remind everyone, this was such a large concern for us when we're also looking at transitioning veterans. So we should have felt this. We've been here before. Let's apply this lens as well to our military community. So Rosie, I would love for you to talk about that, finding meaningful employment that feels like, having that return on your investment. We know that we've all invested a lot in our schooling, a lot in our own professional development, and that can be challenging to find that return. So what are some of the things that employers, since we have 375 participants, I think we have a lot of employers here today, what can they do to support spouses' ability to pursue meaningful employment? Stressing that word.
Yeah, no, that's great. And actually, I think everybody took my talking points today because I've heard so many things throughout the webinar. So number one, listen to this whole thing because I think you'll take a really good insights on what the next steps are. But I think you just said it, is we've learned a lot through the veteran space. I think we need to apply it to the military spouse space in particular. And also take advantage of the lessons that we've learned throughout this past year. I mean, I know for some, you may not like that virtual environment, but I think it could open opportunities, especially for employers in particular. And I know a lot of them are evaluating that feasibility, whether they're going to continue a remote portable career path, whether they're going to do some hybrid approach, or, potentially, hey, new opportunities that they didn't think about are now possible through that virtual remote portable career. And so if you're either strengthening or enhancing that pipeline or adding new ones, I would think, take advantage and look at military spouses as that population. So market to them, provide those opportunities, no doubt. A note on that, even though the military spouses are part of a military affiliated, military connected community, they are different from other military affiliated and military connected communities. So if you're going to target military spouses, use military spouse language. I've heard very often, and I've seen it in comments and surveys, that they will apply for a job and they go to the job posting and it's really specifically tailored for veterans and not necessarily military spouses. So I think it's going to be extremely important to use that language. But in terms of meaningful employment and opportunities to grow, I mean, I think it's the stuff that we've applied for veterans. Provide those professional development opportunities. Partner with colleges to, offer certification pathways. And some companies actually have those certification pathways. but also allow for flexible work schedules so you can take advantage of those opportunities, I think is going to be really key. I've seen some companies do some innovative things like, they map out their career pathways within their companies. So they see the job growth and potentially next steps that they need to take for promotional or for those opportunities. Lastly, well, two more things. One, resources is going to be big, and access to the resources is going to be really critical here. I don't think one employer or one individual is going to do it on their own, but it really is going to be a network of people. So definitely partner, collaborate, talk is going to be key. And then lastly, everything that I'm talking about can be done in a virtual world. So please, please, please continue that.
Awesome. Thank you, Rosie. And I think so much around the things that we have learned around 2020 is that we could actually be amazing mentors within a workplace, because I said I learned so much working for a military spouse organization where I had to figure out how to use Google Docs to collectively share things back and forth. So we're a true asset. But with that, I just also want to note that this community came together and helped, in particular, like at Psych Armor, we put together a course. Instead of 15 things to know about military spouses, it was 15 reasons to hire a military spouse. So we break some of that stuff down there. And again, it really was a collective effort between everyone here. So I'm watching the chat box go crazy. And I just wish, could we all like do a session where we could just get together and then go through the chat box? Because there's some incredible stuff in here. People talking about student loans. The social and worker in me wants to like dive in and start to find some other great work after this, but that's not my role right now. Though Hisako said we could be, spunky and alive. So come on, Hisako, let's go after it now. Our next guest, Sherman, I think you're going to help us really address some of the stuff that I'm seeing here in the chat box around mental health. So I wanted to cue you up in particular to talk about the importance of having community providers, nonprofits. We have so many employers here. What does that look like for greater mental health support? But I'm also thinking of what we're seeing of those that are sitting here in the chat box. They definitely want to talk about mental health. You have some great experience around peer support, the work that you're currently doing now. So could you add to this conversation and what everyone is talking about right now in this group, and lead us into just some of the different things around the importance around mental health support and around this peer support network?
I'll be glad to. And I want to preface my comments by commending the Hiring Our Heroes Foundation and Hisako for taking this two-pronged approach to the problem. One being listening to the people that are impacted and getting their experiences in a way that aggregates the problem a bit. It gives definition to the problem, but you do something very important, because these people are not data points on a timeline, right? They're actual lives that are impacted. And when you take this report and tie it to what Maria talked about, what Tiffany talked about, and what Candice talked about, you give it three-dimensional definition so that the data doesn't sit there as nameless, faceless people who are going through this problem. And I want to kind of go right to the peer support angle, because nobody understands you better than somebody who's been in a position you find yourself in. We know that's true, as Rosalinda suggested, with veterans with certain disabilities. A veteran with an amputation is going to understand based on the experience of somebody else who's had that. Caregivers who bear the burden alone. A lot of them don't see it as a burden, but some do, and they do face it alone. And they talk to other caregivers and survivors when they've lost a loved one. These are groups that are oftentimes, there's no way to align what they're going through with some other common experience that others who don't know haven't gone through. And you can be sympathetic, but it's hard to empathize. A military spouse, and by the way, I was a military spouse as well. My wife served 18 months in Afghanistan. She was an Army soldier, and I knew what that was like from a male perspective. So the changing face of this problem is also important to recognize. But you do get your life upended by the rigors of military service when you're that support. And people say support as if it's sort of this passive thing. Most of the time, you're the reason why that service member can function, right? So there are direct national security implications for those who are in the home that this military service member has to come back to find stability and to offload the hardship of serving in the military, especially after deployment. So that military spouse becomes critical to the apparatus that keeps us free as a country. So when you find yourself in the hole, and when we refer to this a lot when we talk about injuries, it's not always a doctor or an organization or a medication or some self-help book that's going to get you out of it. It's somebody who's been in that hole before, who's willing to jump back in with you. And a lot of you have done that. I've watched your work, who are willing to jump back in and show you the way out, right? And so if you set up a formal support system where those connections are more likely to happen, that's the beginning of, and that aligned experiences, then you're enhancing the likelihood of success. Everybody's not going to have the same degree of success because everybody's at different starting points, but you enhance the likelihood that you're going to be more successful systemically when you have these forums where you bring people together who have common experiences. And that's where you start to have people try different approaches, adopt different attitudes, or simply feel like somebody understands what they're going through. And I think that has implications for their self-esteem and things like that. And it's not as abstract when you talk to somebody who can say, as Maria and Candice laid out, details about their lives. And I was really taken in by Maria's story because she talked about being somebody on that senior level who still faced a lot of the issues that somebody who's relatively new to this is going to face. And I think that those challenges are obvious to people who don't know what it's like. So to have them bring us into those stories, to tie it to the data is very important to having us take it out of the abstract and do something about it. But I think that, you know, having forums like this and having people and employers especially understand one thing in particular, the way you help society and solve this problem is to have people within your organization who have been through this. They become the ambassadors. They can help you find military spouses and maximize their potential and navigate those uncertainties. Like, are they going to move, and are they going to do this? And, you know, what are ways we can capture that talent? And I've seen spouses move and keep their job because the job didn't require physical placement. We've all had to reimagine what it's like to work virtually now. We know what that's like and what's possible. Well, this may have implications in how we keep military spouses in jobs for which they're suited for, bring a lot, and have a lot to offer, and simply need an opportunity to hold on to that and move up in the organization by thinking about the job a little bit differently.
Sherman, I also think a part of the solution is we all just need a little bit more of you in our lives.
A little more.
So I'm going to wrap up quickly because I know also in this world that we're in, everybody ends when they're supposed to and jumps onto the next Zoom call. So I want to thank all the panelists for being a part of this discussion and encouraging all of you to go to that report, because what you heard here is broken down. If you know anything about Rosie and Hisako's work, they give you nice pictures to make it super simple. So go to the report. Sherman, thank you for bringing that human aspect and also just the narrator, the orator in you. I'm obsessed. And everyone have a good time with this report. I wanted to say one thing really important. It didn't have a page number on it. Maybe the non-embargoed copy will. But the recommendations is everyone's action items following this briefing. So have a great day, everyone. Thanks for bringing me on board.
Thank you, Tina, and to our panelists. That was a powerful discussion. I love it. We're just getting started on this. It's exciting. There was one message that came across loud and clear for me. And it was, when you employ a spouse, you help them reclaim their sense of self, and they gain confidence, pride, and purpose. But this just can't be solved with putting spouses into any job. We need to help spouses maintain a career. Everyone has an important role in how we move the needle on what research recommends. Improved mental health care, help with navigating employment resources, greater empathy for those in a position to hire and lead military spouses in the workplace, and greater access to formal mentorship resources and peer career support from other military spouses. Sherman hit on that so well. Our next speaker is from the Department of Veterans Affairs, a longstanding partner of Hiring Our Heroes and one who offers a range of resources for military spouses to utilize in their pursuit for meaningful employment. Today, we are joined by Margarita Devlin, Principal Deputy Undersecretary for Benefits. In this position, Margarita is second in command at the Veteran Benefits Administration, which administers benefits to veterans across the country. She is a recognized leader, a relentless advocate for veterans and their families, and a proud Marine mom.
Hi, my name is Margarita Devlin, and I'm the Principal Deputy Undersecretary for Benefits at the Department of Veterans Affairs. I'm really happy to be here today as Hiring Our Heroes shares their findings from the Military Spouse Employment and Wellbeing Survey. Research like this is essential for all of us in understanding and responding to the needs of service members, veterans, and their families. I'd like to thank Hiring Our Heroes and their partners for sponsoring this research and sharing the results. The findings confirm what we at VBA know to be true. People who have meaningful employment have a better overall sense of well-being than people who are unemployed or underemployed. The link between employment, mental health, and overall well-being is undeniable. We at VBA share your commitment to support military spouses and their efforts to find meaningful and rewarding employment. VA and VBA are committed to hiring veterans and military spouses. Here at VBA, we leverage special hiring authorities to hire both veterans and military spouses. About 60% of our workforce in VBA is comprised of veterans. It's harder to get data on military spouses in our workforce because many also identify as veterans and then they're counted in that population. VBA recruits veterans and military spouses for our open positions through USA Jobs. And we also use the Military Spouse Employment Portal to reach potential candidates for our job openings. VBA has 56 regional offices around the country. So while we are not in every community, we do have some offices which are near military installations, and we're always hiring. So we encourage veterans and military spouses to look regularly for job openings on USA Jobs, and we encourage military spouses to keep their resumes updated in the Military Spouse Employment Portal. And let me talk about some services we can offer to service members and their spouses with respect to employment and financial security. Of course, we provide a full-day course on VA benefits and services as part of DoD's Transition Assistance Program. And more recently, we acknowledged that the military to civilian transition journey does not end at the issuance of the DD-214. And we now provide transition-related support for 1 year before through 1 year after military separation, and mostly through our VA Solid Start program, which gives the newly separated veteran ongoing personalized support to help them have a successful transition to civilian life, and to make sure they're able to fully take advantage of all the VA benefits and services that they might be entitled to. Military spouses have always had an open invitation to participate in the TAP program, but we know that it was often challenging for them to attend because of work or childcare responsibilities. One silver lining of our shift last spring to a virtual platform because of the pandemic was that it did make it easier for military spouses and other family members to attend TAP sessions and better understand the benefits and services that are available to them. We also provide courses throughout the military life cycle and encourage military spouses to take advantage of some of these courses. For example, we explain in our course on education benefits that a military member needs to work with their military service leadership to determine how to gain eligibility to transfer their education benefits to a spouse or a child. This is important because eligibility for transfer of education benefits is a retention benefit, and it has specific requirements regarding military service time commitments. We did this because we often heard that veterans were not aware of how this process worked, and therefore were not able to be proactive in seeking this eligibility while in service. One benefit that military spouses can take advantage of related to employment is the Personalized Career Planning and Guidance Program. If a spouse or other dependent has GI Bill benefits which were transferred to them, they are eligible to take advantage of this personalized benefit. This service, which is also available to transitioning service members and veterans who are eligible for a VA education benefit, provides for a one-on-one experience with a professional career counselor who can help them navigate education and career options and help them develop a personalized plan to achieve their goals. These professional counselors are available around the country at or near certain schools and at all VA regional offices, and can also offer this service virtually through video technology. They're also skilled at helping with resume development, benefits guidance, overcoming obstacles to goals, and helping you develop a job search plan. So in closing, I'm proud to note that VBA has signed a memorandum of understanding with Hiring Our Heroes. We will work together to evaluate the implications of this and other research to help light the path towards additional ways in which we can support service members, veterans, and their families. We at VBA are deeply committed to continually improving the experience for service members, veterans, and their families, and survivors. On behalf of VBA, I thank Hiring Our Heroes for your ongoing work and collaboration to support those who have served and their families, and I look forward to our ongoing partnership. Thank you.
Thank you, Margarita, and thank you for joining us today. As Meredith said earlier, we are not resting here at Hiring Our Heroes, and your continued partnership helps us create economic opportunity for military spouses around the globe. We'd like to thank Starbucks once again for their generous support and our partner organizations who helped us with the survey outreach. To review the full report, please use the link provided in the chat box. To close, today's event marks the beginning of the military spouse employment well-being journey. And I have to tell you, it's exciting to think that the next generation of military spouses will be welcomed, rewarded, and encouraged when they stand up and say, I'm a military spouse seeking employment. Not only that, the long-lasting benefits of improved mental health and well-being will last for generations to come. So join us on the journey. We are just getting started. So come climb the mountain with us. Thank you.